Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fandomology, where fandoms collide. And we are back with another beginner series. We are back, of course, again with Chris, or as he's calling himself these days, Composite Creativity. And today we are talking about the Kirby series. This was one that Chris actually suggested himself. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So the first question what we always ask is, how did we first hear about Kirby? So how did you first hear about Kirby, Chris?
Sure. My initial introduction to Kirby, like a lot of Nintendo characters outside of Mario, was I would say it was probably Super Smash Bros. Melee back in the day, and then the first actual Kirby game I played, which came out not long after Melee for the Game Boy Advance, was Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, and it wasn't until like years later that I learned that that game was actually a remake of a Super Nintendo title, Kirby's Adventure. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and also on the GameCube, my sister Marissa and we played Kirby's Air Ride all the time. Have you ever played that?
I'd heard of it, I think.
Yeah, it was this really fun racing game, which I really wish would get a remake on the Switch, or better yet, a sequel.
That does sound fun. But my first exposure to Kirby outside of like commercials was actually the game Superstar Ultra on the DS. That is the only Kirby game, by the way, that I have ever played to 100%. And
Okay.
it is also one of the games that my sister Morgan got really big into. Um, in fact, she currently has a 3DS just for that game, if I'm not mistaken. So Kirby is great, and of course, I knew that Kirby was in Smash Brothers. Um, I knew that there were other Kirby games that weren't, of course, Superstar Ultra. Some that had come out before, some that had come out after. Right now, I have Superstar Ultra on my 3DS, and the other Kirby game I've got is the newest one, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which I have yet to finish, but I do very much like it.
Nice. Yeah, Superstar Ultra was a good one. In fact, that game, I think it was like after that game when one of Kirby's number one supporting characters, Bandana Waddle Dee, started to gain notoriety, but we can get to him later. And that game was also the debut for an iconic recurring Kirby villain, Galactonite.
Exactly. So, with that, then, let's go ahead and get into sort of the origin story of Kirby. So, whose idea was the Kirby series and how did that come about?
Yeah, Kirby was originally created by Masahiro Sakurai, which is a name that people out there should be familiar with through Smash Brothers.
Hmm.
And he originally created Kirby back in the 90s as a placeholder character for like another game he was working on, or at least the early stages of whatever game he was working on at the time. And then he didn't, so Kirby was meant to be a placeholder for another character, but then Sakurai ended up liking Kirby's simple design and decided to just stick with it. And then
Okay.
he decided to present the character design to Shigeru Miyamoto, and then this leads into Kirby's color. Um, on the original Game Boy Advance box art for Kirby's first game, Kirby's Dream Land, he's
Hmm.
shown as white on the box art because at the time, I guess they didn't know what color Kirby was going to be yet. Um, so when Sakurai presented his design to Shigeru Miyamoto, he showed him the pink design, and Miyamoto liked it, but he requested Sakurai to change one thing. He wanted Kirby to be yellow instead. Um, but to please Miyamoto and keep his own design, he made the yellow Kirby the Player Two palette swap color.
Okay.
So in a lot of games, like where you get to play as either multiple Kirby's or even his skins in the Smash games. The second Kirby color in the rotation is after the pink is always yellow.
Right. I do remember, I think, a couple of the mini games in Kirby Superstar Ultra that had the multiple Kirby's. Yeah, if I remember correctly, it was always pink, yellow, blue, and green were the colors, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, what did Mr. Miyamoto initially think of Kirby when he had seen that? Was he impressed, or was he more along the lines of, "What the heck is this thing?"
Well, like I said, he did like the design. He just I guess he wanted it to be yellow because I guess he didn't think pink would really like appeal to audiences. I guess I don't know what Miyamoto's reasoning was at the time, but he did like Kirby's design in total. It's just the color that he wanted changed.
Okay. And then from
And
there, of course, the rest is history. What started as just a simple placeholder became literally its own universe.
indeed, and then there's the matter of Kirby's name. Um, probably wondering how. So we're probably wondering why did they pick this name for this character? Um,
Hmm.
well, at the time, I don't know if you're familiar with this history, but Nintendo was actually getting sued by Paramount over Donkey Kong because they thought Nintendo was trying to rip off King Kong, and then the lawyer who
I
ended up
didn't know that actually. Wow.
yeah, so the lawyer who ended up defending Nintendo from that lawsuit and winning the court case for them, his name was John Kirby, and then as
Oh, okay.
yeah, so as thanks for helping them out the way he did, his family got a pre-release copy of Kirby's first game.
Nice. So, where would you say Kirby ranks as far as popularity goes overall as a series in comparison to say Mario, Zelda, or Metroid? Because to me, at least with current day Nintendo, of their long-standing franchises, if Mario and Zelda are competing for number one, Kirby's definitely right behind them for me. Would you say that's
Yeah,
about accurate?
yeah, I would say so because he gets like way more, well, not as much exposure as Mario and Zelda, but definitely like enough that he is has a pretty sizable fan base, like comparable in size to Mario and Zelda.
Okay, I definitely agree. And like I said, I'm definitely a Kirby fan. Also, I know for a fact that my sister is a Kirby fan. And what's not to like? I mean, I got pictures. I got pictures of the different characters here. We'll go ahead and bring up the main man himself. So that is Kirby, and that is more or less the same design that Mr. Sakurai came up with. Of course, you mentioned white to pink, but is there any other design changes that was made between his debut and now?
Um, if you look at some of the box art for like the older games, like he kind like the like where you see those blushes on his cheeks, they were originally kind of like whisker like markings there, but otherwise he looked just the same as he does now.
Okay. So, dipping a little bit into the universe, what is Kirby?
Yeah, the name of his species has never been explicitly stated. Like they're just referred to as Kirby species or just simply Kirby's. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, Kirby's like a blob-like alien who arrived on planet Popstar one day, which is the setting of Dreamland. Like it's not clear if Dreamland is just one part of the planet or if it encompasses the whole planet. Like it's never made clear, but Kirby first arrived there one day after King Dedede had hoarded the food supply, and Dreamland needed someone to get it back, and Kirby did that, and he fought and defeated King Dedede for the first time.
Okay. Which, by the way, this is King Dedede. He's basically this fat, overweight penguin that likes to carry around a hammer. And so what ultimately, so basically Kirby's just this kind of free spirit that will sometimes help out the people of Dreamland, but mostly he just kind of does his own thing.
Yeah, Kirby usually, like, when he's not saving the day, he's just usually eating, napping. That's about it, really.
Okay. And then as far as Kirby's abilities, his most noted ability, of course, is his ability to suck in different enemies, and depending on the enemy that he inhales, he can directly copy whatever those abilities are. So say he inhaled an enemy with fire powers. Kirby now has fire powers. So how does that work? Like what's the lore behind that?
Yeah, that I don't think has been, they haven't really like gone like too deep into like the science or like whatever behind like how he's able to copy things, but there are numerous copy abilities across the games: fire, ice, wing, bomb, crash, and a whole lot more. I'm not gonna list them all.
Right. My personal favorite has always been hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Hammer and I would say stone. Those are like my two favorites. Hammer, in my opinion, is the best offensive ability. Stone is the best defensive ability.
Yeah, Stone's definitely good. I like Sword. And in Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, the remake on Switch, they introduce a new one, Sand, which is
Ooh.
honestly kind of broken, but still useful, especially for both offense and defense. Because the reason I say it's broken is because defensively, you can just essentially just hide in a pile of sand, and no enemy, even bosses, can hurt you while you're hiding there.
Yeah, I've got to try that at some point.
Yeah, that game is on the Switch. I think it's the most recent Kirby release, as of last February.
Okay. So, of course, other abilities that Kirby has is that he's able to suck in air to inflate himself to float around, and he can also expel that air as a projectile if he needs to. And recently in Kirby the Forgotten Land, he can also inhale different objects and kind of like assume the shape of that object and control it. So he can inhale a car and basically become like a car, right?
Yep, that's just one of the several mouthful mode abilities introduced in that game. And there's like other ones, like there's Stare, Minecart, Big Rig, Light Bulb, and and a few more than those.
Yeah. Which again, those definitely added some interesting gameplay to the newest game. And I'm honestly not I think one of my favorite ones was the vending machine one. I think that one was pretty cool how you're able to just shoot out soda cans and hit enemies with that.
Yeah, and then I also like the Spike one where he swallows the traffic cone and then does a dive bombing attack.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. So anyways, getting back to sort of the lore. you mentioned him a little bit earlier, but let's go ahead and get into him a little bit, and that's King DDD. So what's his? Obviously, he's like the main antagonist of the Kirby series, but he's also kind of the comic relief antagonist. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. I mean, he was a genuine villain at first, but then, actually, no, maybe not. Like he did start off as a legitimate enemy to Kirby, but over time, the two have become that eventually like lessened to like a mere rivalry, and then further on through time to genuine friendship, where they're like just straight up allies these days.
Mm-hmm. Except seemingly from what I've seen in Forgotten Land, where King DDD has just gone completely feral.
Well, he was being controlled by that game's main antagonist, and the reason, like after the first game, that like DDD is often doing anything evil is usually because he's under the influence of some outside force, and it's become kind of a meme among
Oh,
Kirby fans
okay.
that DDD gets possessed a lot.
It's funny that you say that because had you not mentioned that detail, I would have, the whole trajectory of, oh, he used to be his enemy, but now they're kind of friends to just rivals. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the relationship between Sonic and Eggman.
Yeah, that's
Because Eggman used to be a very serious villain, but now he's just kind of silly.
yeah, but I don't know if Eggman's really getting like mind controlled by other villains though, or at the very least just trying to take control of them for himself if he can. But back
Exactly.
but yeah, DDD, you get to see like a really good example of how far his character development has come, like near the end of Forgotten Land, right before you go into the last level. I don't know how far you are, but
Oh, I'm not even close to that. I'm at only the second island.
okay.
So another character that we got to pull up, and for the longest time, by the way, just as a side note, this guy was my co-main in Smash. I do occasionally get him out and use him, but I used to play him a lot more than I do, and that's Meta Knight. So what is his story?
Yeah, Meta Knight, he first debuted in I think Kirby's no, not Kirby, not Kirby, either Kirby's Adventure or no Kirby Superstar, which is what Ultra was a remake of. Like he
Yeah,
initially appeared attempting to conquer Dreamland with the battleship Halberd,
which ended up
and just
being a Smash stage and a great one, by the way.
yep, and then and then his relationship with Kirby was also kind of a rivalry relationship, but then later on, like they are now allies these days as well. But and nowadays, if they fight, it just seems more like they're just having sparring sessions than anything.
Hmm.
And something I will say about Meta Knight, he's got a strong sense of honor because in most Kirby games where you've fought him, like he'll offer you a sword to give you the sword ability if you don't have it going in.
Yeah,
Because I guess he just wants like a proper sword fight with Kirby. So he doesn't like so he'll like give Kirby that, I guess, just to for the sake of making it a more enjoyable fight. But yeah.
it's also pretty much confirmed that he is of the same species as Kirby because in Superstar Ultra, when you defeat him, his mask shattered and he's got basically the same face as Kirby.
Oh yeah, that's what happens like when you beat him in like pretty much any game where you fight him. Like the mask will come off and you'll see that he's got the blush on his cheeks and such. And there's even like a skin for Kirby in Smash based on Meta Knight's color.
Right. Do you think there's any like familial relation between the two, or is it just same species and that's it?
Same species is about all we can tell so far, but beyond
Okay.
that, I'm
And,
not sure.
and for the record, the wings that are coming out his back here, that's just his cape. Those are not his actual part of his body, correct?
Yeah, I don't I don't know if the wings just turn into a cape when he's not flying, or if he can actually take the cape off. But yeah, the wings and the cape are one and the same.
Okay. Now, why did he initially want to take over Dreamland with the Halberd warship?
I think it boiled down to like he just wanted to kind of bring Dreamland out of like the its lazy lifestyle, because Dreamland is like a place where you can just pretty much just relax forever, eat infinite amounts of food, and just pretty much just nap all the time. Just like a perfect
Okay.
utopia. Like, and I guess he just like kind of felt the Dreamland lifestyle was like too lazy for its own good, I guess. But yeah, that was his initial reason for his actions back then.
Okay. So yeah, Meta Knight is definitely an interesting character, and like I said, do I do like him. I still occasionally play as him in Smash Brothers. Here's an interesting question: do you think we will ever see a Meta Knight solo game?
I mean, there have been Meta Knight sub games, and like in Superstar Ultra, there's Meta Nightmare mode, and then there's something similar in Planet Robobot. So he's gotten like his own game campaigns, like within Kirby titles, but he's never had his own
Yes.
spin-offs yet.
And Meta Nightmare, by the way, was amazing, really fun.
Yeah, and Meta Knight, in the Kirby anime, he's like the wise one, like the wise mentor type figure, like trying to provide like information and help to Kirby and his friends from time to time.
Okay. So let's talk now about another character. I initially wasn't going to include this character, but you said that he was important. So we're going to talk about Bandana Waddle Dee. So first off, before we get into this guy specifically, what is just a Waddle Dee in general?
Yeah, so the Waddle Dees are like the primary inhabitants of Dreamland, kind of like think of them as like equivalent to the Toads from Mario, as like a mostly peaceful species,
Hmm.
and 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 a lot of the time they usually serve as enemies, like in the armies of either DDD or like whoever the villain is that game. Um, but when they're not doing that, they're just mostly harmless.
Okay. And so what made this guy special among the Waddle Dees?
Yeah, Bandana Waddle Dee, he's actually stronger than most Waddle Dees, and there's this song related to him called the Apple Juice song. I wouldn't play it on
What?
stream, but yeah, so it's like it's basically implies that he got like he got incredibly strong by drinking apple juice every day, which in Dreamland I could believe that, because which it yeah, in Dreamland that's definitely plausible, because after all there is a invincibility candy as a power up in Kirby games, so special food that can make you powerful. I mean, that's not out of the question for Kirby.
Right. But
And
but yeah, you
that's
hear that, kids? Drink your apple juice and you'll get strong.
yes. Did you ever play the Megaton Punch mini game in Superstar Ultra?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah, yeah, you'll remember Bandana Wildy was your competitor in that game.
Oh yeah, that's right. I do remember that now.
Yeah, and then in the DDD's Revenge game mode, he served as like a mini boss on the way to DDD, but then in games after that, he's kind of become the player two character to Kirby, kind of like Tails for Sonic or Luigi for Mario.
Uh-huh.
And there's quite a lot of and when Smash Ultimate was in development, or even when the DLCs were being rolled out, there was a lot of demand for him to join the other three main Kirby characters in the Smash roster, and so much so that it spawned that fan trailer I sent you earlier today.
Which I'd be honest, I didn't get a chance to watch that. I'll definitely try and do that at some points, probably after the stream. I'm trying to pull other pictures real quick to add in for us to talk about.
Okay.
But while I do that, let's talk now about this guy who was introduced in Superstar. And you want to talk about an absolutely wacky design. This guy, for those that don't know, his name is Marx. And he basically is the closest thing I would say to pure evil, at least that I know of in the Kirby universe. Would you say that's accurate?
There have been worse villains since there have been way more evil villains since Marx, but for what it's worth, Marx was did have a pretty big reputation as one of Kirby's greatest enemies for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And in Superstar Ultra, like you'll remember, he in the True Arena mode, you had like that whole second form of him, Mark's soul.
Oh yeah, that's right. Where basically he's a zombie.
Yeah, he merged with the remnants of the Galactic Nova, the machine that can grant wishes, to become more powerful. And then that whole concept of like a soul form for Kirby bosses ended up, well, that started with Marx and became a staple for a lot of Kirby bosses after him.
Yeah, which real quick, I'm going to pull that picture. I've got it pulled up in a tab. I'll bring that in. So again, just a reminder, this is normal Marx, or at least his boss form. This is Mark's soul. And like I said, at least in Superstar Ultra, he is basically a zombie that got resurrected by the remains of this magical clock, is about the best way I could put that.
Yeah.
So, what role does Marx serve after Superstar Ultra? Is he another one of those that eventually kind of became allies with Kirby over time, or is he still just pure evil?
Well, bit of both in like more recent games, because in Smash Brothers Ultimate, you'll recall he's a boss that you can fight,
Mm-hmm.
and he did become an ally like that's you can play as in Kirby Star Allies, and that game has a lot of Kirby characters from different games showing up as Dream Friends, including some that were previously enemies to him. And apparently, Kirby forgave Marx at some point after their last fight, although there's not really much to go on for how that came to happen.
Right. So he didn't start out like that, of course. He started out, in fact, let me see if I can find a picture of that. His quote unquote normal form.
Okay.
Let me grab this picture. So this is what Marx looks like, basically depowered. Completely harmless. And completely innocent looking. And he tricks Kirby into going to find that giant clock thing, or the wishing star, I think it's called.
The Galactic Nova.
Yeah, the Galactic Nova, thank you. And yeah, Marx just tricks Kirby and steals the wish.
Mm-hmm. And that becomes being a villain tricking Kirby, Marx becomes the first of, well, two villains to do that.
Okay, and who's the other?
The other being Magalore from Return to Dreamland.
Okay, which I have his picture right here. So tell me a little bit about this guy.
All right, so Magalore, you first meet him at the beginning of Kirby's Return to Dreamland when his starship, the Lore Starcutter, crashes on planet Popstar, and he asks Kirby and his friends to help him get the parts back and repair the ship so that he can make it back to his home planet, which Kirby, DDD, Meta Knight, and Bandana D, which they do accomplish this, and then he asks them to help him defeat the dragon who wrecked the ship, Landia, and then you find out after defeating Landia that the real reason he wanted them to beat the dragon for him was so he could steal an artifact called the Master Crown.
Right, which he eventually gets his hands on, and I think I found a picture of that. It's uploading. That's it right there, right?
Yes. So the
Okay.
master, yeah. So the master crown, it's an artifact that grants the wielder limitless power, but at the cost of the user's soul.
Interesting because I was finding concept arts for Magalore Soul, or is that real?
There is a Magalore. There's like a Magalore EX form that you can fight in like the harder mode campaigns or game modes.
Let
So
me let me
he,
bring this picture up real quick. Is that what you're talking about here?
yes.
Okay. God, I didn't know Kirby did bosses could get so creepy looking. Because here's the thing, I thought that was a mouth that he was smiling. No, that's an eyeball underneath his two eyeballs.
Oh, just wait till
Why?
you. Oh, just wait till you see like 02. Like he gets yes, yeah. Kirby boss designs can get creepy.
Magalore boss 02.
No. 02 is a whole separate being, but we don't need to talk about him right now.
I just looked it up. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's like
like the
okay,
way an
I'm
angel
trying
is described in the Bible.
yeah, I'm trying to pull a good picture up just so I can see this. I know we're getting off topic from where we were initially, but look at that. What in the like why does this exist?
Yeah, Zero is the leader of a species called the Dark Matter, which invade and bring darkness to planets. In fact, in the very first game, King DDD was possessed by a Dark Matter.
Mhm.
But yeah, they're
So,
basic. The Dark Matter are like the ultimate evil in the Kirby series.
okay. So, again going back to different characters, going back to the ones we had already planned on bringing up, let's talk now about this guy, Galactonite. So, Galactonite, I know this one, he was introduced first in Meta Nightmare Ultra as the final boss of that game because Meta Knight needs his own sword based rival. And so, why not make basically Meta Knight again, but even more powerful? Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say it. Yeah, that's correct. They kind of wanted to keep the Meta Knight boss fight style, but even though they were bringing making the character a good guy over time, so they wanted to kind of preserve what that was like with this new character, and that's how Galactonite came to be.
And unlike Meta Knight, Galactonite truly is just all bad all the time.
As far as we can tell, yeah. And though what little lore has been like inferred or implied about him is he may be he's like suspected to be a fallen hero kind of character.
Okay. I could kind of see it because again, he's got that pink color scheme that isn't quite the same as Kirby's, but I mean, here's Kirby's shade of pink and here's his. It's definitely darker. Maybe this you could say that this was like another Kirby that failed.
I guess, yeah, because there's reference in Kirby Star Allies to these four legendary heroes who sealed away the game's antagonist Void Termina in the Jamba Heart, and the things keeping him trapped in there were these weapons called the Heart Spears. And then in one of the Kirby Clash games where Galactonite appears, he has an attack in one of his alternate forms where he throws those at you, which has led to the belief that Galactonite was one of those legendary warriors from ancient times.
Okay. So the next character I'm going to bring up is this one. So who is this?
All right, so Glenn, if you're watching, you're gonna be glad I'm gonna talk about Susie here. So Susie Haltman, full name Susanna Patria Haltman. She appears in Kirby Planet Robobot as kind of the secondary.
Wait a minute. This is the Susie that Glenn uses in his death battles as his host?
As his co-host, yeah.
Now it makes sense. I legit thought that Glenn had like an actual sister named Susie that Glenn, if you actually have a sister named Susie, or if you don't, I'm sorry for thinking that you did.
Right. So,
But wow.
anyways, yeah. Anyway, so Susie's deal in that game, she's kind of the secondary antagonist to her father, President Haltman of they're both the executives of an organization called the Haltman Works Company, which basically go planet to planet, drain the planets of their natural resources, and mechanize the landscape and their people.
So basically the Borg from Star Trek.
Kind of.
Or alternatively, you could kind of say Eggman too.
Oh yeah. But yeah, with Susie, you find out in Planet Robobot that that her father, Max Prophet Haltman, he once lost her in the past because of
which that's
his
him
machine.
there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So he lost Susie in the past for, I forget if it was because of like his one of the programs of his AI Star Dream, but or for some other unknown incident, but he was trying to desperately get her back, and then his continued use of Star Dream made him forget about Susie entirely. And so even when she came to work for him, he didn't recognize her. And then you kind of get to see a bit of Susie's pain in response to this, like near the end, right after you defeat Haltman, or President Haltman. She ends up stealing some device from him to take control of Stardream, but that doesn't last because Stardream ends up going rogue on its own. But the program he was trying to use to find Susie was this space-time transporter function for the machine. It's probably getting confusing as hell for you.
Yeah, it is a little bit, but I get it. It's all just part of the plot for that game, right?
Yes, and Galactonite also makes an appearance in that game as well. In Meta Knight's campaign mode, which I think is also called Meta Nightmare in that same game.
Right. Okay. So let's talk now about the games themselves. So first off, how many total Kirby games are there?
There have been Oh, yeah, I think somewhere over 30.
Okay. And
Let me see.
then
Actually, let me just double check.
kind of within those 30, is there like an overall timeline to them, or are they more or less just their own standalone sort of thing?
They're mostly standalone. Like there's no official timeline.
Okay, so it's not like our last one where there was a timeline, say, with Metroid.
Correct.
Okay. So then my follow-up question to that is what what would you say are like the most essential Kirby games to play? I'm going to throw Superstar Ultra out there myself personally. I think that one is like if you play no other Kirby game, play that one. But what would you say?
I would definitely pick Superstar Ultra as well. I'd also say Forgotten Land, Star Allies, um, and Nightmare and Dreamland if you can get that one, or Kirby's Adventure if it's on the Nintendo Switch emulator, because Nightmare and Dreamland is a remake of that, like I said.
Okay.
And
So,
go ahead,
okay.
Paul.
And honestly, gameplay wise, it's just very simple. They're mostly 2D scrollers. Okay, there's a few that are 3D, like Kirby and the Forgotten Land is all 3D, but most of them are 2D scrollers that you just go through and of course get from one end of the stage to the other. You've got some collectibles sometimes and some bosses, but it's mostly just get from one end of the stage to the other. There is one game though that I had seen a friend of mine play once, and I want to get your take on it. Tell me about Kirby's Epic Yarn.
Okay, that one I've played on the Wii. That one was like a unique one for the system where Dreamland gets transformed into this yarn-like world by a wizard named Yin Yarn. Um,
Uh huh.
because I guess he wanted to like make the rest of Kirby's universe turn into like some kind of yarn land yarn landscape, I guess. But like I don't remember if that was. I don't remember. It's been so long since I played. I don't remember the general plot of that. But I think Kirby goes to the yarn world, whatever it's called, and he meets, I forget his name, Prince Fluff, who serves as his companion in that game.
Right.
I mean, it was a decent game. Like I remember it being fun back then.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely looked fun, but compared, but I don't know, it just looked a little bit too babyish to me, I guess, with the yarn aesthetic. So I guess if that's your jam, if that's what you like, that sort of aesthetic, I would say check it out. I have never played it actually myself. I'd be willing to try it for sure, but it sounds like that game's kind of, I don't know, how hard would you say that game is to find?
I don't know. I've never tried looking for it in today's. I never tried looking for it since then, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's all that I can think about to talk about with Kirby. Is there anything that we didn't cover?
Um, oh yeah. Other media outside of games and merchandise.
Yes. So Kirby merchandise is getting pretty popular. Of course, Kirby himself, it's like the character, he was tailor made to be plushy-ified. I know my sister has, I think she does have a Kirby plushie. I've seen them sold all over the place in like GameStop and such. Um, but you did mention the anime earlier. Have you watched the anime all the way through?
I've watched a good amount of it, and I did watch the finale movie some years ago for it. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, that was on 4Kids TV on Saturdays. I forget what years, but they were. But yeah, that was like Kirby's biggest adaptation back then. Um, and he also does have his own manga as well,
Okay.
although
And
it's nothing like the show.
okay. And would you say that those are worth checking out if you can find them?
It's so like the mangas are more closely based on the games themselves. Um,
Okay. I know Zelda did something similar to that before too, like adapting their games to mangas. I have a few copies of those and I love those for sure. But I didn't know that Kirby did the same thing.
yeah, and then with as far as Kirby merchandise goes, in Japan there are actually these Kirby themed restaurants called the Kirby cafes. Um, so they
Okay,
have like
I gotta look that up real quick.
do it, yeah, because they look like they'd be fun to visit.
Oh my goodness. This is pretty much exactly what I thought it would be. This is an example of their food.
Oh yeah, yeah. That Kirby burger there. You notice that's the same like Kirby burger edible from Forgotten Land.
Yes.
And then as you can see in the also Google images, there's the Carmouth cake. Um, there is
Yeah,
a
there's
and
the
there is
car. There's him swallowing a whole hot dog, which I we won't make any jokes about that.
the
Okay,
burger.
that is impressive. That's impressive right there. So, for those that don't know, that's one of the reoccurring bosses from this game. Um, something Woods. I can't remember. What is it
Wispy
now?
Woods. Wispy
Wispy
Woods.
Woods. Yeah. So this is like a recreation of that boss, but but of course just as a normal statue. That is impressive. The detail that they put into that.
Yeah, if you played like any Kirby games, you undoubtedly know who Wispy Woods is because you fight him very early in like most Kirby games. Like it's rare to have a Kirby game without him or him in some form. Although Forgotten Land is
Exactly.
although Forgotten Land is one of those few where you don't fight him.
Wait, yeah, you do.
You fight a similar boss called Tropic Woods or Tropical Woods.
Right. Which I don't know. That's close enough to me at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it then as far as Kirby goes. It's not the top dog for Nintendo, but he's definitely up there. So if you've never played a Kirby game, I would definitely recommend it. And yeah, that's honestly all that I can think of to say. Is there anything that you got, Chris?
Yeah, I was gonna say like if you it's always fun how they throw in like Easter eggs of other Nintendo properties into some of the Kirby games, at least some of the older ones, like Superstar Ultra. If you think of some of the transformations for the Stone ability, like
Yeah,
like
that
he'll
is true.
yeah like he'll turn into a statue of Mario or a Thwomp or one of the star blocks that you find, and you can even see Mario and Luigi in the background when you're fighting DDD and Spring Breeze.
Yes.
And some of those like other game icons like appear in his stone transformations in Smash as well. And but yeah, and I love how Nintendo kind of depicts Kirby and Mario as rivals to each other. Like think back to the very first fight of Subspace Emissary.
That is true. It was the two of them, which I don't get. Why specifically those two as rivals to each other?
I'm not sure, but I guess it kind of works like when you consider like they both come from like very similar, colorful worlds and all the star motifs that you see around both of them. Um, but yeah, they've got like they wouldn't be out of place like in each other's world like at all, honestly.
Okay. All right. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring this stream to a close. So again, thank you, Chris, for coming back and being part of Beginner Series with me. I don't know yet, guys, what the next Beginner Series is going to be. I've put some feelers out to Baron to have him come back. I have an idea for that, but I'm not going to say what it is yet. Friday, of course, we have our open pop-in stream where the topic is going to be what makes a good mystery. And of course, as I said, I've posted some new rules regarding the pop-in streams. Please make sure you've read up on those before you pop in. I will, of course, reiterate those when the time comes on that stream. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will talk to you later. Sorry, did you forget something?
Oh, I'd like to say, don't forget the stream tradition, and it's Wednesday. Hint, hint.
Oh, that's right. We gotta. Here, I can do this.
Delicious Whooper's the cutest of.
Thanks, Paul.
No problem. Now we can hit the outro video.